Before we get started, Talk Music Talk has a newsletter, a weekly email featuring the current week's guests, plus what past guests are up to. Also, I'll tell you about shows I've attended and new music that I like. To sign up, head on over to talkmusictalk.com, click on the link, subscribe to newsletter, and you are all set. That's talkmusictalk.com. And now for today's episode. Hello there, podcast listener. This is Talk Music Talk with Boice. I am Boice, your podcasting host. Thank you for checking it out if this is your first time listening. Talk Music Talk is a weekly music interview podcast where I have long-form conversations with people who are connected to music from different genres and different backgrounds, established and emerging, people you may know, people that you may need to know. And on this episode, I had the pleasure of speaking to Victor Vieira-Branco. He is a Brazilian vibraphonist who I met in a great way. We both happened to be at one of the Village Vanguard shows for Mary Halverson. She performed there, a guest I interviewed back on episode 135. She is an experimental jazz guitarist. You should check out her music and that episode 135. Anyway, we were sitting across from each other and he happened to recognize me from the photo that she posted of us on Facebook. Online. We got to talking, found out that he is an amazing musician, so I wanted to have him on the podcast to talk about himself and what he does. Great story. We talked about his background. He started out on drums and percussion as a kid, later moved on to the vibraphone. We talk about how Ornette Coleman's The Shape of Jazz to Come was a pivotal influence to him. We talk about his believing that there is a connection between punk and jazz music, the music scene in Brazil. He wants to put his spin on the vibraphone. Also talk about overcoming a substance addiction and how he recommitted himself to his music after abandoning it somewhat. Inspiring, fascinating guest. After the conversation, you will hear two songs from one of his projects, Trio, Repelente, Shifty, and then Azul, right after the conversation. But here it is, without further ado, my interview with Victor Vieira-Branco. Enjoy. Like most bad Americans, I do not speak another language. And everything I'm reading online about you is in Portuguese.
Yeah.
So I'm starting from scratch, which is exciting
to
find out all about you other than your music, which is great.
Excellent. Yeah.
And so you're from Brazil.
Yeah, originally I'm from the States. I was born in Philadelphia, and I moved around quite a bit. And then after high school, I moved to Brazil.
Okay.
And so I've been there since 2009.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how is it the difference from growing up here, going back, and then coming back?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I feel very used to Brazil at this point, and I don't imagine myself living in the States again. I just think, just the lifestyle and the people down there. It's just so I feel more comfortable being myself down there, I feel, than here, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how old were you? Would you have been
when I moved?
Yeah.
I was 18. Right about,
Okay, 18.
Yeah.
Okay. So did you have to adjust, or were you visiting?
Well, my original plan was I was going to go to school in Chicago for jazz drumming.
Okay.
And then I ended up going to Brazil for a year because my grandmother had a house that was up, and when she passed, it kind of became my sister and mine, and I ended up staying in Brazil. I just loved it, and I just never came back.
Okay, but you hadn't been visiting Brazil
I
prior to
had
that?
visited a bit growing up.
Okay.
My father was Brazilian, and so we would go down there every couple of years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when did the music start for you? Was drums the first instrument?
Yeah, I started doing music when, I don't know, as young as I was. I think in second grade, I started getting interested in drums and percussion. And then I just started, doing school lessons, and I just kept going with it. And then became interested in drum set and all of that.
Was that parents made you take an instrument, or you requested?
No. That was me. Yeah. No one in my immediate family played anything.
Okay.
But my parents were very encouraging. Yeah, so that was nice. Yeah.
I always think the parents that let you play drums are like half crazy.
Yeah.
Because my grandmother let my uncle play drums and was rehearsing.
Okay.
Is that like tedious for parents to hear drumming?
Yeah, I think so. There's a family story that I got a drum set when I was 5, and then for Christmas, and then my father said it was broken, and so he returned it the next day. And so I had to wait till I was a little bit older to get that going again.
Okay,
but,
so you didn't find out till after the fact that it actually wasn't.
But yeah, I mean, they were always super supportive and helpful and encouraging. So that was wonderful to have. Yeah.
Was it how to get into the coordination? Because it's like all 4 limbs are doing something different.
Yeah.
Did you pick that up right away?
I wouldn't say right away, but I remember I would play a lot, and I don't know, they weren't very musically oriented, my parents, but my father was an artist, and my mother was an educator, so they were both very into the arts, and so they were just super forward and let me do what I needed to. Yeah.
Did you why drums? Were there any drummers you liked, or?
Yeah, I guess I just enjoyed. I was always banging on stuff, you know. I mean, I just enjoyed just rhythms. I guess just listening, you know, just in music that I would hear.
Was there any particular kind of music, jazz or rock?
When I was super young, it was just rock stuff. Nothing too special. I remember liking Hanson when I was very, very young, like super young, and seeing that, and then just kind of being like that, kind of like the goofball drummer thing. Like, I don't know, it's a goofy band to mention, but yeah.
Were you exposed to any like Brazilian rhythms? Any of that?
Not early, no, not too much. Pretty much just like TV stuff, whatever my sister would listen to, and I would just kind of fall into line with that. Yeah.
Does that come in? I mean, because there's a difference between Brazilian rhythms and
I mean, Brazil has such a rich history in percussion and rhythms, and it's wonderful. But I feel like I'm starting to get to know it now. Yeah, as opposed to when I was super young.
Okay.
I really didn't get into that until I was kind of in my late teens. I started to find out about it, and but that was mostly through school, just learning about, you know, bossa nova and all of that, and kind of diving into it. Yeah. So
when would you say you started to feel like you were getting good?
I don't know if that's a hard question. I when I was
or stop sucking, that you stopped. That you stopped being bad. When
yeah. Well, I remember I think I was a sophomore in high school, and this was in Chicago. I met the son of Jim Peterick, who he was in Survivor, and he wrote, I guess he wrote Eye of the Tiger. Yeah. And then his son was a super music nerd, and we met, and he started getting me into some like weird prog rock, which I think was helpful because it helped me learn just like odd time signatures, and so I played that for a bit, and then just playing shows at an early age. I feel, you know, and that was, I wouldn't say that I thought I was good at any point, but I mean, I realized, you know, this is something I really enjoy doing, and I want to take it forward. So yeah, that's kind of where that side of it.
And when did vibraphones, like when does that come into play?
So at a little bit after that, I guess that staying like the prog rock thing, that was really quick, and I started like playing the jazz band at school, and I was always in orchestra and those groups playing in throughout high school and middle school, and I just one day my high school music teacher just told me to try it out, and I got really interested in it, and I think this was after I kind of jazz really hit me.
Yeah.
And I was really into just a lot of the Midwest punk scene. I was really into like folk punk and a lot of that. And I heard an Ornette Coleman album, The Shape of Jazz to Come.
Yeah.
And when I heard Lonely Woman, I was just floored by it. And I guess that's when I realized just kind of how punk jazz can be. Was, I guess in that sense, I felt that energy and that the looseness and that really intrigued me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is there a clear connection between drums and vibraphones?
Yeah, I mean, half of it's there, I guess, like the rhythmic aspect. But I had learned to play like guitar and bass a bit, but to be opened up to, because I mean, it's somewhat a small piano. I mean, it's a 3-octave instrument, and you have 2 mallets in each hand, so you can kind of just diving into that world was really interesting for me and a bit of a challenge, and that excited me.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of how I got into it in terms of the similarities.
Okay, so like coming from piano would be an easier transition.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. And I didn't have any of that. So I kind of started from scratch when I got into the vibraphone a bit. Okay. But yeah, it was great.
Okay, so does the coordination with the drumming, that helps with
definitely
that part?
Yeah, okay. Definitely. So the rhythmics part, there are different techniques and it's different tools that you're using, and that's definitely an adjustment. Yeah. But it is easier than just hopping onto the vibraphone without, Yeah. So, yeah, it was good.
And where were you hearing all this different music from?
Pretty much just curiosity. I guess the punk bands that really interested me were, I always enjoyed just good musicianship, and I would always, every show I'd go to, even today, I just feel like I just look at the musicians who are playing, and that kind of slowly just kind of took me towards that world. And once I dove into I felt like before I heard Ornette Coleman, jazz was something that a good musician should be interested in, or kind of like you should play in high school, and it kind of felt like that. But then once I realized, once you dive into something well enough and you find something that you can relate to in it, it's like a lot easier to just be more interested, I guess. Okay. Yeah.
And so this is in Philly, right?
Yeah, this is in Chicago.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go back to the timeline. You're from Philly. Yeah. Initially, then when to Chicago?
So what happened was we moved around a lot. Okay. After I was born in Philadelphia, so I never really grew up in Philly. I don't know it too well. And I lived in Brazil. I lived there for 1 year of middle school. Okay. And then in that time period, a bunch of family stuff happened, and I moved with my sister in Chicago, and that was for high school. So after middle school, I went from Brazil to Chicago and the ribs there.
Okay, so it wasn't from Chicago to Brazil.
No, it was from Philadelphia to Brazil, and then Brazil to Chicago. Okay, and then
back to
Brazil.
Back to Brazil. Okay, got it. Yeah. Okay, I think I'm good now. Okay. If I ask again.
Yeah, no,
I didn't write this down.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's good.
So you graduated. Like, what are you thinking about? Like, what school? Like, what you're going to do school wise?
Well, a big influence in terms of what I do and how I coming to what I do is in high school. I met Jason Adashevitz, who's a vibraphonist and drummer and composer, and I feel like we had so much in common. Even he was obviously a lot older and he was an established musician, but just learning about his story in terms of also, as most vibraphonists starting as a drummer, but he was very into the alt folk scene in Chicago, and his style of playing was very it wasn't super traditional to what I had known at that time. You know, I think vibe players tend to be very clean, and you know, and he's just a very open player, and he's very dissonant, and he has roots in you know, in punk energy. You know, and it was quite an influence to meet him and spend time with him, and he also had been playing in Brazil a bit with Rob Mazurek, who's a cornet player from Chicago, who had lived in Brazil. And so he kind of hooked me up with certain people down there. My goal was to go to DePaul University for jazz drumming and jazz performance. And I had also lost my parents around this time. Okay. And so that I felt my father had passed when I was 18. So I felt a need to kind of connect with Brazil. And there's this house that my grandmother's house that we were going to sell. And I decided to just move there. And then, yeah, that's kind of what I did. But what was tricky was I didn't have a vibraphone. Okay. So when I got to Brazil, I just kind of focused on drumming and a bit of that. Yeah. Okay.
Because that's a cumbersome instrument, I guess, is it?
Yeah. It's tricky. I mean, I would practice on the one at my high school, which I lived close to, and it's expensive as well. So when I moved there, I just kind of thought I was going to give up on it. And so, yeah, I just did that for a bit.
Well, how'd you meet this Jason guy? How did you meet him?
Well, pretty much in high school, my band director, Mark Dahl, he told me that he had seen this vibe player from Chicago, and I think I Googled like Chicago vibraphonist, and Jason was the first one that popped up. And I think until today, I was his only student. I don't think he like outly teaches, but I just sent him an email, and he took me in. So yeah, it was great.
That's cool. So are you thinking now that it's possible to do something career-wise or explore that?
I think definitely. I feel that.
Like at that time?
Oh, at that time? Yeah. I don't think so, no. At that time, I kind of didn't really know what I was doing. And when I got to Brazil, I was opened up to, I kind of stopped studying music as well. I kept playing. I never stopped playing, but I didn't, it wasn't a routine that I was following every day because, just because it's so hard to play drums in a house in Brazil. Okay. The houses are very, they're not built for cold weather. Yeah, you know, and so, sound, spreads quickly. And my neighborhood's, a very old neighborhood in my city, and I just had very elderly neighbors. Okay. It was a weird thing. I kept playing, but I never really had the routine of practicing when I first got there. Okay. And then that was it was frustrating, but then I kind of accepted it, and I just didn't think music would be it was always a thing, but I never thought in terms of career at that time. Yeah.
Were you writing your own stuff?
Yeah, I would always write. I wrote, I had like a folk solo thing at one point where I would write music for that. I had some bands that I would write for. I played drums and sang in a few bands. Yeah. So I was writing like that kind of stuff, but I wasn't thinking too much about jazz at this point still. Like I kind of took a break from that, and it was always something I enjoyed, but I wasn't thinking that that's something I would end up doing. Yeah.
Okay. So in Brazil, did you have to like learn the music scene? Were you involved in like going to shows, getting to know musicians? Were you doing that any?
Yeah, it happened fairly quickly, but in my city, which is called Sorocaba, it's an hour from São Paulo. Okay. So it's very close. So I would be able to go out to São Paulo to see shows, but in my city, there was a lot. There's a good, and now it's even better. Music scene that existed. Yeah. It's always been there, but it's been developing, and it's just such a great city to be in. Yeah. And I think also because part of the reason I was kind of worn out of the punk scene, and I went on some tours while I was here, while I was a teenager, in some bands and playing basements and house shows, and I think it felt really easy to be a part of something, but I didn't feel like I was really contributing. Okay. And whereas I felt like I wanted to see something happen and be a part of something that's growing, as opposed to just, like I was going on some tours, which was really exciting to be 17 and doing and traveling around to play music. But also there were some nights where I'd feel like maybe I shouldn't have been doing that. I mean, in terms of the music, like it was so easy to start a band and write 10 songs and go on a tour. But then I just kept questioning. It's like, so I don't know.
Because it's not, because you've jazzed, it's a little harder to do that, or like, what were you thinking that?
I don't know. I was just thinking that in terms of, I didn't feel like I was going anywhere. Okay. And in terms of music, and it was I always felt, just that I didn't, it just felt very, what's the right word for this?
Static?
Yeah, kind of static. Okay. A little bit of like a routine, like I was, and I didn't want that. Yeah. And I kind of was just feeling out of place in the just people I knew, all that.
So how did you like move from that to feeling like in a place that you belong, or doing what you feel comfortable with, or growing?
Well, in Brazil, once I met the right crowd, I guess, in my city, I kind of felt like I was again being a part of something that was growing, and it was really nice to be putting on shows for people and to watch a community. And it's a lot more difficult to go on tour in Brazil, so it was nice to see that when I did, it was something that I don't know how to say that.
Is it for what you wanted to do that you had the technique, like you were overqualified for the punk stuff?
Maybe.
Like it didn't challenge you enough?
I just feel like that. But that's a good way to put it. I just felt like some of the music I was playing, and this is more recently, to like 4 years ago, it just didn't, some of the bands I was playing in Brazil didn't feel, not, I wouldn't say challenging, but I didn't feel like I was saying what I wanted to say.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's a good way to put it. And then I was just a little frustrated, and then I started drinking a lot in that time too, and I just that kind of took over pretty quickly, and so then
party drinking or alone drinking?
Just alone drinking, party drinking too. Okay, and so in 2014 I was able to buy a vibraphone. I decided that I needed to do it. I just, I had to figure a way out to get it. I did that. I quit drinking like 4 months after I bought a vibraphone because I realized I had to get my shit together. And then ever since then, I feel like the presence of this instrument in my life has just improved my quality of living in general.
So that was like a pivotal moment, being able to get the instrument, the vibraphone. Okay.
Yeah. That was 2014.
Okay. Yeah. Was it hard quitting for you? Was it
drinking?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit, but it was at the point where I also realized that I just wasn't gonna do anything. Yeah. I didn't stop. It was either music or that. And that was kind of a very pivot point in terms of me returning to taking music very seriously. I think that was the beginning of 2015 that I quit. Okay. I think I got the instrument in 2014 in October. Yeah.
Okay. Congratulations, dude. That's good for you.
Yeah.
It's good to hear.
It's fun. Yeah, it's good. I'm very content.
Yeah.
With that decision.
So we got Victor 2.0. Alcohol free. Sure. He's got the new instrument. So how's that open? What happens now once you get your instrument?
I just kind of hid away and tried really hard to. I feel like I had to make up for the years that I wasn't playing.
Yeah.
And so I spent a lot of time just focusing on that and trying to just get things back and get new things going.
Yeah.
And, but at the same time, I was still playing some shows occasionally with the vibraphone. I started to dabble in a bit of free improvisation. But I was I just, a part of me kind of felt like I still wasn't, it's weird to say ready, in a weird of that, like I felt like I still needed to devote a lot of time. It was too, but I think it's important that I did do that, and so it's been very positive since then.
How did you get more ready then? You mentors or you study with someone?
I was in contact with, I did like a year of self-practice, or self-teaching, I guess, just trying to regain everything back. And then a year and a half ago, I started a conservatory and started studying at a conservatory again. And just kind of getting that back has been very helpful. And just, but also just playing with people. And that's, I feel, is always just such a great positive way to learn. And so that was very helpful. And just, just playing, I guess, in the sense of, and not worrying too much about it. I feel like that's just such a strong tool in terms of learning something and just, just doing and trying and not worry about the shoulds or should nots, So, it was great.
And trio, I'm not going to say because I'll probably say it wrong. You say it?
Trio Repelente.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
so how am I going to say that? Okay, teach me how do I say that?
Say,
trio.
You can say trio repellente.
Trio repellente. Yeah. Yours sounds much like sexier.
That's great. That's good to know.
So say it again.
Trio repellente.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good, dude. Okay, so how did that start? What brought that about?
Yeah,
because the album came out in January this year.
Yeah, that happened this year. And then. It's been good. Jason Adashevitz again, who I studied with in Chicago, going back to that, he played a lot with Rob Mazurek, and they're also, those two are just both musicians who I just really appreciate what they do. And then Jason hooked me up with some people in Brazil from a band called Hurt Mold. And they play, some of them have a group with Rob Mazurek called São Paulo Underground.
Okay.
And I started playing in a duo of just open improv with Rogério Martins. And he's a clarinet and sax player. And after a while, I met Mauricio Takara. And he's a drummer, multi-instrumentalist. He does... a lot of different things, and he's also just a wonderful musician, and he invited me and kind of took him, I feel like they kind of took me under their wing a bit in São Paulo. And so pretty much the past year and a half I've been going there for the conservatory, but also just to be playing with them. And I feel like music, a lot of it in terms of career and stuff, it's just so much of being at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And I feel that one thing I've noticed, I feel very lucky to have met the people I've met in my life and be in certain places from, and it's just been great. I mean, Mauricio is the drummer in the group, and he writes some music as well, and Rodrigo Hara is the bassist.
Okay.
And they're both just musicians that I enjoy listening to. In a way, it's kind of I feel like it's the group I've always wanted to have.
Yeah.
In the sense that I feel like I can finally channel just writing, which is very important to me. I'm very interested in composition and composing, and just being able to improvise. I don't know if it's a jazz group, but it definitely pulls a lot of influence from that in terms of just swing and just the energy, being able to sweat and, and take the vibraphone out of a place that it is, I feel like it's a very clean, it's a very, traditionally a very angelic instrument. And it's important to me to bring my background in playing in punk bands. And that energy.
Punk it up a little.
Yeah, because I feel like that's kind of what, when I say punk too, I guess I just mean just that kind of energy and mindset a little bit.
Like the spirit
and I think
of it.
the spirit of it, And in a lot of ways, jazz and punk, and, as deeper as I dive into those two worlds, I feel like they're kind of the same thing, And so I miss seeing energy in groups, and I miss just seeing people just let loose a bit, and so that's really exciting to be doing. Yeah.
Had you already had these songs written, or you wrote them with them in mind?
The trio songs, I think I wrote with them in mind.
Okay.
And I had been trying to write some other stuff, but it was pretty much, it's the first group that I've been able to write and try out compositions on the vibraphone and perform in a trio with. Yeah. So that's been exciting.
Yeah, it's cool. And you're in New York now.
Yeah.
And you'll be going back to?
I go back to Brazil on the 15th of August. Yeah, very soon.
Okay. Are you going to be missing New York?
Yeah, but I miss São Paulo,
Yeah.
I miss what that city has to offer, and just playing there. It's wonderful as well. Yeah.
Will you be continuing your conservatory?
Yeah, I finished that this year.
Okay.
And there's a few other things going on this year as well. Some other groups that are happening. So yeah. It's exciting.
That's cool, dude.
Yeah.
And let's see, any best place where people can check out music online?
Yeah.
Bandcamp, is that the best place?
Yeah, there's a Bandcamp, which is Trio Repelente.
And I'll put that in the show notes.
Okay. Also, the three of us in the trio also play in a group called Baoba Stereo Club.
Okay.
And that there's an album coming out later this year. So that's an exciting group that I'm happy to be a part of.
That sounds great, dude. Great, Victor. And you are you are first for me. You're the first person who's recognized me from the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Great. Yeah, cool. So for people, we met at the Mary Halverson show, who I previously interviewed, and we're sitting across from each other, and you recognized me. So that was cool.
It was a beautiful show.
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was great.
Yeah. Have you been a long-time fan of hers?
I wouldn't say long time. Not, I've kind of, once the Octet album came out, I dove into it, and that show was just...
And you were there for both sets.
Yeah, it was great. And, her music is wonderful.
Yeah.
And, definitely, I've been thinking about that album a lot, and her writing, and
yeah.
So it was great.
Cool. Well, it was a pleasure to meet you and to do the interview.
Wonderful.
Thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Sure. And I wish you the best with everything.
Excellent. Thanks. You too.
And there you have it. 2 from Victor's trio Repelente, or what he said. That was Azul, and before that, Shifty. Go to Bandcamp, get the music, triorepelente.bandcamp.com. His other project, Baoba Stereo Club, is also on Bandcamp at baoba.bandcamp.com. I will put all that in the show notes for you. I'm online at talkmusictalk.com for more podcast information and to also stream every single episode. You can download them there too. I'm on Instagram at thisisboice, so follow me there. And some call to actions for you if you enjoyed this episode with Victor. Please share it on social media, email it to a friend, leave a 5-star rating and or review on iTunes if you are listening there. I understand you are busy and it only takes a moment, so I would appreciate it if you would do one of those things because it really does help with word of mouth and growing the TMT audience. Also, there is an app, the TMT app. That's right. It's free for iPhone and Android, wherever you like to get your apps. Or you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, a whole bunch of other places. Just search for Talk Music Talk. You can also find the podcast on SoundCloud before SoundCloud goes away. I hope that doesn't happen. But soundcloud.com/thisisboice. BOICE, in case you didn't know, starting with episode 100 with Carlos D, former bassist of Interpol, Carlos Dangler, episode 100. Thank you so much for listening. Till next time, and there will be a next time. This one's for you, Liz.